ladies and gentlemen, my close personal friend, Jessie Shternshus.
Woo! So, you can be Vanna. All right, I'll figure out different roles for you throughout the talk. Is that cool?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. So you can be Vanna now. So I wanted to talk to you guys about how to improve your organization using improv. A lot of times people hear improv and they're like, I have no idea what that has anything to do with what I'm learning or what I'm doing at work. And so I wanted to survey you and ask you, when you hear improv, what does it mean to you? So shout it out. What does it mean? Drama class, comedy, what else? Thinking on your feet, say yes. What? Yes. Calling mockery, listening and being open. Up there? Yeah, I love you. Yeah, so it's all of these things. A lot of times when I go to organizations, truthfully, especially when I'm working with developers, they are petrified that I'm coming, and I'm very aware of that. However, it is my job to win them over in about 2 minutes, or else they probably want to kill me and throw me out the window. So improv, yeah. So a lot of people have these ideas of what they think it means, and that it's directly related to comedy and being on stage and whose line is it anyway. And it is those things. It's also a lot of other things as well. So I am the owner of the Improv Effect. I started my company about 6 years ago. And I work worldwide with all sorts of companies, big, small, whatever. I love that you're here. Yeah, so, and I go to companies and I help them either communicate better or I help them with innovation, so thinking differently. And yeah, so here's a couple pictures. This is an ideation I did a couple weeks ago with a company like the company from Up in the Air where they fire people for a living, so that was fun. And so they wanted, like, how do we rebrand ourselves? How do we not be like the bummer company that comes in and you hate us? So we ran them through a couple days of ideation and got them to think differently, and we used improv to do that. And then this is a group of trainers at an investment bank, and they wanted help using improv to help them actually train better and make their training more experiential and more fun and make it stick, because they did it. And so I did a fun exercise with them about an unusable product, which some of you have done that if I've worked with your company. And then, where's Waldo? And so this is, I have like the weirdest pictures of me, which I'm sure is not surprising to you at all. And so this was them picking out their objectives for their team. They wanted to figure out, like, what is their team really behind? And so we worked on this exercise to kind of figure out what is that together. So anyway, so improv is something that you can use to remove barriers, and it's because you're having a shared experience and you're laughing. And constantly laughing actually breaks down a lot of walls. So it's actually very helpful. The first thing I wanted to talk about is building a troupe. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how I build my troupe of improvisers, because I have a group of improvisers. We do shows about twice a month. And we do shows kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway, so short form. And when I'm looking to build a troupe, I have to look for important things. So I'm looking for the type of person who understands the good of the whole group. They have an us mentality, meaning they are not divas, okay? And I think that you guys can relate to this. When you're working with somebody on your team who has a very diva type of personality, it really derails. It doesn't matter if they're an amazing developer. They derail it because their personality gets in the way, right? And that's the same thing when I'm putting together a troupe of people who are going to perform. I need these people who are very much have this team mentality. I'm also looking for a group of people who have diverse talents, okay? I don't want all of the same type of people with all the same experiences. I want very different people so that when we play all these different games, we succeed at them all because we're stronger because of all of our diversity and our different experiences. And I think that that is something that you guys are looking for as well. And I've seen products, actually, that it's very clear that they've all been made by, like, a 20-something-year-old man. And so it would help them to have some sort of, diverse group working through that product together. And I think it would make their product much stronger. I look at my improv troupe as our product, that we're performing and we're iterating based on what we get called out from the audience and seeing if it works. And if it doesn't, we go in another direction. The other thing is that I want a group of people who aren't afraid to be vulnerable and they're able to try new things. And part of that is, as a director, you need to set up an environment for that, right? You can't just expect people to be okay with being vulnerable. But it is important. You want people on your team who are willing to be vulnerable because creativity comes from vulnerability. And then the last thing is I want people who know when to lead and when to follow. So these people clearly are aware, they're self-aware, and they're aware of others. And they know where their strengths and weaknesses lie, and they know when to play what part. And so they're not the kind of people who plow over everybody else to get their point across. They know that there might be somebody else on their team who has the strength, and that's what we currently need. So does that make sense? Yeah? All right. Awesome. Thank you, Gnome. All right. So these are my crazy people. This is my troupe. We jump around a lot. Like I said, we do shows twice a month. And we also, sometimes we get asked to do corporate commercials. So this is us. We were asked to do a commercial about the world's worst internship. And we did a series of sketches on this guy in the front, the redhead. He was the world's worst intern at the world's worst internship. And we're all the people that worked with him. And so we were not very happy with him and making fools of ourselves in corporate America, which is very fun to do. So I want to tell you a story, and I'm going to relate the story, and it's also going to be interactive because there's no way I can do a talk without it being interactive, so just for you to be prepared. So we do shows, okay? And at the end of our show, like I said, we do short form. And we like to do this game called Worst Date. And so what we'll do is we'll ask the audience and we'll say, has anybody had a really terrible date? And usually somebody raises their hand because usually, there's somebody who's had a rotten date, at least one. And so this night we had this girl named Emily come up. And so she comes up and I'm the host, so I started interviewing her. And I'm asking her all these questions to kind of get as much detail about her as I can. While I'm doing this, the rest of my troupe is in the background and they're really listening. They're being using active listening skills, right? So they're listening not only to what she's saying, but they're also listening to what she's doing and her quirks. So they're watching her, they're picking up on everything. So I start interviewing Emily, and I say, Emily, so when was your date? And she said, oh, well, I was in college. It was terrible. And I was like, oh, did you live on the dorms? And she's like, what? Did I live on the dorms? And I'm like, never mind, I mean in the dorm. So clearly I had failed. People do not live on the dorm, at least I didn't think so. And so this brings me to the first exercise we're gonna do, which is called failure high five. Okay, so what I want you to do is with the person next to you, I would like you to share a mistake that you've made either today, this morning, while you were dancing with me, or this week, anytime at all, and I want you to share with the person next to you. Each of you share one mistake, at least, unless you're really open, and then high five each other. Woohoo! I failed. Okay, so high five and say I failed. All right. Mine was that I told this person that she lived on the dorms, which clearly is ridiculous. Okay, so go ahead and you have a couple minutes to share your failures and give them a high five. Go for it. What was your failure?
I showed up an hour and a half late for a conference I'm co-hosting.
Woohoo! Nice. Excellent.
It was fun.
Yeah.
I actually went to a really good, I don't know if I'm on mic. I went to a really good improv workshop in LA last year, or this year, some year, from like a UCB instructor, and it was fucking awesome.
That's cool.
I'm much worse at improv than I think I am.
People are. That's the thing. They don't think they are, but they are.
And I feel like I'm fairly adequately exposed to it and know the rules, but even then I fail.
Yeah, exactly.
Practice it, once every 2 years.
Yes, totally.
But I love it. I adore the art form.
Awesome.
I keep thinking you're gonna detonate something with that.
I know, this is really weird.
It's like a Wile E. Coyote looking.
Yes. All right, everybody, admit their failures. Woohoo! All right, good. So in improv, we're not afraid to make mistakes. We celebrate our failures. And I think this is a really important thing when you're putting together a group or your organization, that you have that culture where you have the freedom to fail and that you're learning from it. So let me get back to this night. So Meanwhile, I'm interviewing Emily. I've now said that she accidentally lives on the dorm, not in them, and she goes through the date, she goes to the movies, and it's just horrendous. Like, it's a terrible date. Anyway, not the point. So then, as soon as I finish interviewing her, my troupe comes up, and they immediately reenact her date. And so what you're seeing here is, or sort of seeing, is Sarah. She's playing Emily, the one in the front, and then Justin is playing her date, okay? So the scene comes up, and I'm sort of like off to the side, and I see Justin going like this, and I'm like, oh, dear God. So he is climbing up a ladder, and I'm like, great. All right. So he's taking the mistake, okay, and he's climbing up the ladder, and he goes, hello, how come you live on the dorms, Emily? I'm like, wonderful. Okay, so instead of freaking out, you know, this is hilarious, and actually was like the funniest part of the whole show was this mistake, okay? And so what I wanted to talk to you about is how this relates to improving your culture or your organization. The first thing is that in my troupe, we've created a very non-judgmental environment, so we're okay with sort of joshing each other and being silly. And like I told you before, they were sitting back there and they were actively listening and they were being aware of everything. They did not miss a breath. They did not miss a move, a scratch of the hair, anything, because all of those things allow us to understand that person as much as possible, okay? And then the funny thing is we now have this scene happening, which is from a completely different perspective, right? So nothing we had ever thought, but because of the mistake of me saying that she lives on the dorms, we have this whole new perspective and something new to explore that we would have never done had we not listened and not explored it and sort of negated it and pushed it to the side, okay? And improv is all about seeing mistakes as gifts. So let's do another exercise, all right? So this is called the two-object mashup. And what we're going to do is with the person next to you, I'm going to count to 3, and you're both going to name an object out loud. Okay? And then you are to figure out what is this thing that we've now created. These unlikely things, like a student living on top of a dorm was our mashup, okay? In this case, it's shoes and an umbrella. Like, what does that have to do with anything? But I mean, that's a great idea. If you spent a lot of money on a good pair of shoes, you don't want them to get wet, so just stick some umbrellas on them, obviously. So that's what I want you to do. So you're going to object at the same time, so that you're not purposely fitting yours to theirs. And then I'd like you to figure out, explore with each other, what would this be? What's the good of this? Why would people like it? Who would use it? All right, you ready? Yeah, so everybody have their partner? So find your partner. All right, so scoot over next to somebody. I'm forcing you to interact. So sorry. All right, you ready? 1, 2, 3, go. All right, now talk about it.
1, 2, 3.
Granola. Granola peppermill.
That actually seems very
Yeah,
practical.
yes.
Like you get tired
You just-
of chewing,
yes.
you mill it, and
Yeah.
you're done.
Yes,
That was too easy.
that was. We're brilliant. Woo! Granola peppermill. I like it.
Good. I think that's how what is it? Grits came to be.
Yeah. Nice.
Actually, they aren't made from granola; they're made from corn.
In a peppermill?
I mean, in a mill.
In a mill.
They're milled.
Nice.
You can mill anything if you.
You can mill anything. It's true.
I'm gonna sit back down.
All right. Okay. Everybody finish their amazing creation. Do I have a pair that wants to share? Come on. Yeah? Okay, come on up. Jen and Crystal. Give them a round of applause for volunteering. All right. So what was your clever creation?
It's bowling bicycle.
Bowling bicycle. Okay.
So while the person is bicycling, they wipe out to see how many pins they knock over.
Nice.
Nice! Yes! I like it. Give them a round of applause. Woo! Bowling bicycle. See, you never know. Would you have ever thought of that without my silly talk? All right, so let's get one other group. One other group. Who wants to come up? All right, cool. Come on up. Do you want to come up too? No. You can. Do you want to come up by yourself and play the game with me? Okay, never mind. Cool. All right, awesome. Ready?
Yeah. So he said hypodermic needle. I said refrigerator.
Hypodermic needle and refrigerator. Yes.
Sure. A recharges of non-toxic coolant that could be injected into food or something to cool it.
Right, of course, obviously. Give him a round of applause. Woohoo! One last chance. Yes! Woo! Come on. It can't be hypodermic needle and refrigerator. I am so sorry. Or bowling on a bike. All right. What was yours?
Toupees for elephants.
Elephant toupees. Yes, of course. And
Big, huge skulls.
they do. And so they do need to stay warm.
Look good.
And look good. Yes. Right. So we styling elephants with the big, huge skulls. I like it. And it keeps them warm. So is it like half blanket
Yeah.
for the head?
Yeah.
I get it. Oh, that's nice. So it comes in their colors. I like that you like color branded it too. That's very good.
They should have different colors to choose from too. Like
Yes.
blue and purple.
Of course, depending on their elephant personality. I understand. Great. High fives. Woohoo! Because elephants want diverse things as well. All right. So let's go back to the story. Okay. So Justin's climbed up the ladder. He's up at the top. He says, "Hi, Emily. How come you live on the dorm?" Okay. And now she could have said, "I don't live on the dorm. What are you talking about?" Okay. She could have said no, and she could have negated, and the scene could have just sort of died right there. But instead, she used the biggest philosophy of improv, which is yes and. And she said, "Of course, I live on the dorm, and it's because my parents can't afford tuition. So I live up here." All right? And so we continued the conversation, and the scene went from there. And so the idea is that we say yes and, okay? That we're not just bobbleheads saying yeah, and we're not listening. The and is the most important part. And this is because we are validating the people on our team and in our organization. And the and is we're adding to it, okay? We're coming up with something that adds and pushes an idea forward. And that's what she did, okay? She didn't stop it in its tracks. So we're going to do another game. All right, so I've got a beach ball that may light up, which was a surprise. But yeah, so I think it does. Yes. Yeah, that was a total surprise. Okay, so we're going to build a persona based on yes and. And what I'm going to do is the first person that catches it is going to say the name of a made-up person, okay? The next person who catches it will then add one thing about that person. So it might be, her name is Zelda, okay? And somebody else catches it. Yes, and she has long blonde hair. Yes, and she trips over it all the time. Yes, and she used to be a former model. Yes, and she loves soup. Okay, and we're just going to keep adding and hopefully more clever than that was. Okay, what I want you to do, though, is I do not want you to get in your head and say, I've got this really, really clever idea, and I can't wait to catch the ball and just force my idea on everyone. What I want you to do is listen to what everybody says and stay in the moment. And whatever is appropriate to say next, say that and add to it. So if you say that Zelda has blonde hair and 2 seconds later somebody says she's bald, you better have a reason why. It shouldn't be because you weren't listening and you thought it would be funny for Zelda to have blonde hair. I mean, bald hair. Bald hair, yes. Mistake. High five to the entire audience. Woo! All right, see, I'm full of mistakes. Okay, you ready? Does it make sense? Yeah? Okay, and so when you catch the ball, just if you could stand up so that everybody could hear you, because there's a crowd up top of people that I think are more shy or hate improv. Okay, so ready? Go! Okay, what is the name? Xavier, all right? His name is Xavier, and he's bald! High fives! I love that you listen, all right? He's bald. He just took a trip to Italy. And? He races camels, of course. And? Of course. He's very good at camel racing. Oh, it's God. And he wins all the time. Great. What next? She's like, not me. Please, not me.
And he has a case full of trophies from his camel races.
Right. All right, let's find out where he keeps them. All right, so he's a case full of trophies. Oh! I've never had that. Oh, careful. Okay, where does he keep the trophies?
One of those refrigerators.
With the hypodermic needles. Yes, perfect. All right. Woohoo! Somebody catch it. Yeah. So it's in the trophies are in the fridge. Xavier's a little bit weird. So what else do we know about him?
And he looks at them and weeps nightly.
He weeps nightly at his trophies. Awesome. So let's find out what. Yeah. All right. Now what? He lost to McNeedle. And scene. We'll end there. I like that he lost to McNeedle. All right. Whew. Good job. So that, my friends, is yes and. All right. Well, goodbye, ball. Okay. All right. So I hope that this is a little more clear how improv relates to actually putting together a team in an organization. Hello. I didn't drink at lunch, I promise. So the first thing I want you to remember is that laughter actually breaks down barriers, and it allows people to be real with each other. That it is really important that your organization and your team is not afraid to fail. And that you see the opportunities. You don't look for opportunities, you actually see them. And there's a difference between looking for opportunities and seeing them. And that mistakes are opportunities for gaining a new perspective. Just like we had this whole new scene where we were on top of the dorm and the audience fell in love with it because it was so different and nothing they had ever imagined. And that's what you want when you're being innovative. Also, that blocking gets you nowhere. So if you're the kind of person who's constantly forcing your ideas on people or not listening and telling everybody no, you're really hard to work with. Really hard. And so I would advise you to try improv, or try at least being aware of, hey, I'm that person that does that. I'm that person that blocks things all the time. And I would say, instead, change it and say yes and. Thank you.